in the jungle. I'm Matt Edwards. It is AFC Championship Sunday, one of the most exciting days of my life, and I am not exaggerating. That is the absolute truth. I woke up so excited, despite the fact that I have just been through it the past few days. I told you this would come out on Saturday. Our 9-hour trip home from Costa Rica turned into a 34-hour trip home from Costa Rica. But we made it in time to watch the Bengals. That's really all I cared about. As I mentioned last week, that's the reason we flew home, tried to fly home on Friday instead of waiting until Saturday to make sure that if the Bengals made it this far, and they did, we would be back in time to see what happens and not have to watch it in Spanish because mi español is no bueno. Anyways, we made it back. I talked to a ton of Bengals fans, not a ton, but probably like 10 or 12 in the airport in Atlanta. So many people representing the black and orange. It was kind of a sight to see. Like I probably travel a little bit more than most. You don't typically if you see another Bengals fan or someone wearing a Bengals hat, it's like, hey, what's up? But this time, more Bengals fans than anything in the airport in Atlanta, which I spent about 24 hours there. Anyways, that's besides the point. The point that we all talked about, that I talked about with fellow Bengals fans in hot Atlanta, where it was 28 degrees and snowing, was the consensus for today, or about 3.5 hours from kickoff, is protect Joe Burrow and go to the next game. Go to the game in Los Angeles against the NFC. I'm not saying those two words. I haven't said them all week. I won't say them on the podcast, but they rhyme with duper hole. That's what the Bengals are playing to go to, and if they protect Joe Burrow at Arrowhead today, I think we all agree they've got a damn good shot to get there. I read an article before this morning from the Washington Post about Joe Burrow, and it kind of touched on a lot of what I wanted to talk about when I planned to record this, when I was writing this out, laying in the 93-degree weather in Costa Rica. And it's that Joe Burrow has kind of been here before. Not to the AFC Championship, but he's been on the biggest stage with the most pressure several times before. He played in his high school championship, now in the state championship. Now, I know you look at that and you say, it's high school, the stakes aren't as big. When you're 17 or 18 years old, the stakes are just as big. In your mind, that's all you know. That's as big as it gets. He was there. He lost to Toledo Central Catholic by like a field goal or whatever. By the way, Athens High School, a public school that didn't have an Ohio State recruit since the 50s. Toledo Central Catholic sends out guys to Division I every single year. Joe Burrow nearly knocked them off in the state final. Then you go to Ohio State, back up against the wall, right? Had J.T. Barrett, Dwayne Haskins. Couldn't get there. Just couldn't get to that starting spot. Still found a way. Still figured out a way to weasel his way out of the pocket and score and make the biggest play of his career, go to LSU, win the Heisman, become the number 1 overall pick, despite the fact that 2 years earlier he was number 3 on the depth chart against two guys who, from Columbus, we all like JT and Dwayne, not even in the same league at the professional level. I mean, those guys, Dwayne's on his last chance, and JT Barrett, who we all love, was a practice squad quarterback at best. Then last year, he hurts his knee. Once again, the curse being in Cincinnati, you got this terrible injury. Well, we know how that ends up. Now there's this year, where again and again, when you have to have these games, he finds a way to do it. He did it, you had the Chargers and 49ers lost. Well, what happened after that? They've wrote off 5 straight wins. People talk about Kansas City kind of being that juggernaut, the way I referred to them the other day. He's been there before, too. His senior year at LSU, I mean, he went on the road and beat Alabama. Clemson, Trevor Lawrence, the two teams that have ruled college football for years now. Who's the one guy to knock off both of them in the season? His name's Joe Burrow. He does this time and time again, yet people are still doubting him. And look, I get how good Patrick Mahomes is. I think I already mentioned, this Chiefs team is the only team to ever host 4 straight AFC championships. It's incredible. Patrick Mahomes earned that $400 million contract for a reason. Andy Reid, I think, is 3rd all-time in playoff wins. They're great. But the guy on the other side of the football finds ways time and time again where he has no business winning, where he has no business coming from Athens, Ohio, from a county that's one of the poorest in the nation. He has no business going from there to this cool guy with Cartier sunglasses, a Heisman Trophy, #1 overall pick, being talked about in hip-hop songs. He's got no business being here, but he is. Why wouldn't you like him today? Why not Joe Burrow and the Bengals today? Every time his back's up against the wall, he finds a way to come out on top. And maybe he doesn't today. But when you go up and you look at the bigger picture, once again, he's put in a situation. He's in Cincinnati, a team that hadn't won a playoff game in 31 years, a franchise that historically is kind of considered in that bottom third of the league. Big picture, he's going to get it done. Maybe it's this year, maybe it's next year, maybe it's not for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I believe in this guy more than... It's easy to have your quarterback and say, I believe in this guy. You look at every situation he's been through in the past, why wouldn't Joe Burrow rise to the occasion again? Gimme him all day long. And he's got the weapons to do it. He still needs an offensive line. That's another thing I talked about with people at the airport. Can you imagine how good he's going to be when he has like a decent offensive line? I think they were ranked 20th this year. When he's got like a 12th or a 10th? And I don't even want to talk about like a 4th or a 5th. He always rises to the occasion. I expect him to do it again in Kansas City this afternoon. Now, for as much as we do talk about Joseph Lee Burrow and the Bengals offense, the defense probably gets overlooked a little, right? And of course that's going to happen. Of course that's going to happen when you got a quarterback who's got the cool shades, who is what he is. He's Joe Burrow, man. He's maybe the coolest guy in football right now. But the defense has done a lot. I mean, the last 2 weeks in the postseason held the Titans to 16. Remember, Derrick Henry was supposed to run for 1,000 yards against the Bengals and 75 touchdowns. They held the Titans to 16 points. Julio Jones, A.J. Brown, Ryan Tannehill, who's a pretty solid quarterback. They've got a really solid offensive line, held them to 16 points in Nashville. Then you look at the Raiders, held them to 19. Now you say, well, it's the Raiders. Okay, well, they scored 35 on the Chargers the week before. You look at the Titans, they scored 28 in their final game of the season. 34 against the Dolphins, who have a really solid defense 2 games before. Oh, and then the Chiefs, by the way. The Kansas City Chiefs, the unstoppable Patrick Mahomes offense, they held them to 3 points in the second half in the last game of the regular season where the Bengals starters played. So, as much as I love talking about Joe Burrow and the offense, and it's fun, man. It's a lot more fun to talk about, 30-yard passes on 3rd and 27 to Jamar Chase than it is to talk about DJ Reader tackling a guy for a half-yard gain. But this defense has been phenomenal for about a month now. They've been pretty good all year, but they've been phenomenal for about a month. And even if you go back before that, you take away 2 muff punts against San Francisco, they only gave up 16 points to the 49ers, another team that's playing this afternoon for the chance to go to the Duper Hole. I said last week, I think this defense has chemistry with the offense. They feed off of each other. They believe in each other. That's where that comes from. They believe they're going to find a way to make it work. That probably starts with Joe Burrow. That probably starts with the fact that anytime they really have to have it this year, they have had it this year. You're talking about 5 straight wins. They'll figure it out. They've done that for weeks now. They nearly did it against the Niners and Chargers, too. This could easily be a 7-game win streak. The Cincinnati Bengals win second halves of football games. Time and time again, they win the second half. They held the Chiefs to 3. I mean, what were they down? 17-7 at the half against the Niners, and that felt like a win for the Bengals at that time? 17-6 against the Niners. We all remember the Chargers game. And I'm not trying to live in November right now, but if you look at the evidence from this team, I mean, they were down 24-0 against the Chargers. And if not for that Joe Mixon run, that Joe Mixon fumble, I think we all believe they come back and win that game. When they have to have it, they figure it out. They win second halves. So if they're down, they were down 14 points a few times against the Chiefs. Don't get discouraged today. Soak today up. And as long as there's time on the clock, they've got a shot. I mean, you look at that Kansas City game with 12:56 left to go in the second quarter. They were down 21-7. They were down 28-14 with 2 minutes and 18 seconds left to go. And then the second half happened, and the Cincinnati Bengals won that second half 21-3. 17-3, which is close to 21-3. They win second halves. I think they'll do it again today. I like the Bengals to win it 27-24. They have needed 5 straight wins. They have won 5 straight. And by the way, again, and I'll kind of end on this, teams are talking about, well, they haven't played anyone. Well, they have. They've played 6 of the 14 playoff teams, 13 because they can't play themselves. So 6 of the 13. Number 1 seed in the AFC, the Titans. We know what happened last week. Number 1 seed in the NFC, the Packers. They went to overtime with them back in October before they had really figured themselves out. That was like the 15th game of Joe Burrow's career, and he goes to overtime against Aaron Rodgers. The Chiefs, yeah, they beat him 4 weeks ago. The Raiders, they beat twice, beat the brakes off of them in Las Vegas, and of course get the win in the postseason in the wild card round, their first win in 31 years in the postseason. And the Steelers, who are probably the worst playoff team in my memory as the 7th seed this year, but nonetheless, the Steelers made the playoffs. They were the 7th best team according to the formula in the NFL, and the Cincinnati Bengals beat the absolute hell out of them twice in the regular season. Then you've got the 49ers and the Packers. They went to overtime with both of them, and if not for special teams blunders in both games, a ton of, I think, 5 missed kicks against the Packers combined between Evan McPherson and Mason Crosby, and then the 2 fumbles from Darius Phillips, in the 49ers game, gives up an easy 10 points to San Francisco, along with a terrible taunting penalty against Von Bell that let the 49ers convert like a 3rd and 17. And I'm not trying to sit here and make excuses, but the 2 games they've lost to playoff teams came down to special teams. So you can't make mistakes today. No one can make any mistakes. That's you. And if you're on the Kansas City side, you can argue, well, we had 6 penalties that gave you guys first downs in that first game. Fair argument. Don't make mistakes today. It might come down to who has the ball last. I'm not going to touchdown off each team's score from the last time. I like the Bengals 27-24. I feel like in these games, and we kind of saw this last week with Tennessee, in these games where everyone talks about how great the offenses are, the defense usually gets a little fired up during the week, says, hey, we're NFL players too, we're big boys too, we're going to make something happen. I hope the Bengals make something happen today. No matter what, this is the best Bengals season of my lifetime, but as Sam Blackburn talked about in the last episode, you never know when you're going to get back here. He said that about the 88 team. They probably thought, all right, well, we were close. We've got a great team. We've got the reigning MVP. We've got this great stable of running backs. We got the best left tackle of all time. On the right side, we've got Max Montoya, who probably ends up in the Bengals Ring of Honor one day. You got Tim Krumrie over there, who everyone still swears if he doesn't break his leg in the first quarter, the Bengals probably win that game. We know what happened. Not only did they not get back, they didn't win a playoff game as a franchise for another 31 years. So soak it up. Live in the moment, enjoy it, and look, we all think Joe Burrow is going to win a Super Bowl at some point, but you just never know. We would have said the same about Carson Palmer in 2005. He looked great. Does he have the mentality Joe Burrow has? No. I'll take Joe Burrow over anyone. I'm not going to sit here and live in the past. I'm just saying, soak it up. You never know when the Bengals will get to this point again. Hopefully, they get past this point. Hopefully, they get to this point several times in the next 10 years, but enjoy it while it's here because nothing's guaranteed. That's it, man. I'm Matt Edwards. This is In the Jungle. I like the Bengals 27-24. These next 3.5 hours are going to be the longest of my life. Hopefully, these 15 minutes pass a little bit of the time for you. I will see you either tonight or tomorrow morning. I don't know, man. I'm exhausted. We'll see what happens. Let's get a win. All right? We'll see you soon. It's In the Jungle.